Here's a story of how I reached the magical cafe at the end of the universe, otherwise known as the Oregon coast. So let's see, how old was I for this one? 17 years old. I was still in high school, Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. At the time, I wasn't planning on moving to any kind of monastery or anything like that. In fact, I was thinking about, which university or college should I apply to? Where should I go? I really, for the first time in a long time at that point, I was kind of flying blind. I didn't know where I should go. I didn't have really a feeling of sort of a golden thread pulling me along. I suppose that's fairly common, but for me at the time it wasn't particularly common. There was always a sense of something pulling me. So, anyways, I was in a Walmart, and it was late at night, and it just sort of came to me. I was walking around. I actually remember exactly where I was. I was right next to the women's clothing department. I think there was like a Kathy Lee Gifford line. It's an unimportant incidental detail, and I knew right where. I could still remember it like it was yesterday. And so I was walking, and I had a sense to ask the universe, where will I be a year from now? I really didn't even have the sense of that. It just kind of came out of my mind. And really to my surprise, as soon as that thought moved through my mind with kind of great force, there was basically a screen that showed up in the space in front of me, like a movie screen. And I could still sort of see through it to the clothes racks and all that kind of stuff, but it was mostly opaque. And so with the screen, there was also a commentator who actually had a strange kind of game show voice. So as I was sitting there, the commentator started out, "Funny you should ask," kind of like that, and then proceeded to tell me that about a year from today, from that day, I would find myself working in a mostly vegetarian cafe. So that was very oddly specific, mostly vegetarian, which what it turned out to be. I'd be working in a mostly vegetarian cafe with a bunch of monks, many of whom would be wearing all white clothing. I would start out as the dishwasher, then I would be trained successively in all the jobs I could be trained in that cafe, until eventually I would be an apprentice to a great chef. And after that, I would run the restaurant at some point. And so all of that, just like that, and there was very detailed, there's sort of a singular detailed image that was sort of running with this commentary. And it was of looking through basically a ticket window about this big from inside the kitchen. Outside of the ticket window was a juice bar. I knew it was a juice bar because I could see a big sort of juicer sticking out from the counter. It was wood paneling on the bar. On one side there was wood paneling. On the other side there was copper, which is really interesting, like a whole wall of copper with some stuff etched into it. The other thing that was very clear about the environment was I could see these sort of wrought iron plant hangers. With plants in them. And then I saw like 3 people walk, like they were walking across my field of view, wearing white, long dark hair, passing by this ticket window. And so, this image, went on for, it must have been less than a minute. And by the end of it, I was like, okay, well, thanks for all that. I don't think that's happening. I just kind of said thank you sincerely and to whatever that was, and then went about my day. At the time, I was pretty happy. I was in a relationship that I really enjoyed. Had been doing very well at school again. There wasn't anything to say that I would do very well the next year, and that I would be finding myself at least getting into some good college or university somewhere around the United States, and that seemed to be like a prudent kind of safe plan. What was to happen in the next month, however, I did not see, and that was me suddenly, very suddenly, even to myself, acquiescing to this long gestating of what I used to call the crazy monk inside, the crazy monk down in my stomach. I was aware of this sort of like this very zealous person. Sounds like there was another person, but it's not. It was me. It was my deeper desire. But for some reason, a month ahead of that, crazy monk, coming up and, basically deciding, let's live that life. That was not on the menu at all. So let me see where I'm going to go next with this. The next part, as you're probably expecting, is, I do end up in that place exactly as it was, which was bizarre. That vision and image, I just basically threw it out of my mind. It was so improbable. So I fast forward about a year, maybe a little bit less at that, when I make the phone call. Maybe it was 10 months or something like that. And I find myself on the phone talking to a monk who's down in the Oregon coast. At that time, I'm up in Seattle. I'm talking to this monk. The interview went surprisingly well. I figured I was going to botch it in some way. The last thing he says on the other line is, "Oh, by the way, we just bought a cafe. There might be a job for you there." And as soon as he said that, I remembered that image and I thought, well, two things. One, I think I was a bit lying by omission because I was afraid to tell him that I had that vision about a year before, because I thought, he would think I'm lying or something, or that would somehow be a disqualifying thing. So negative points for me to be kind of cowardly, in that moment perhaps. And then the next thought I had was skepticism, like, well, you know what? Probably, there was something in me that, unconsciously knew that I wanted to be a monk, and I'm thinking likely scenarios. What would monks do? Probably open a cafe, and I figured, it's a coincidence, right? So I kind of go on with life. I end up showing up at this place, this wonderful little monastery / ashram on the Oregon coast, doing the Ishaya's ascension meditation practice. It at first didn't look like I was going to get a job in that place. They were saying, like, hey, you young bum, go get yourself a job somewhere. And I tried. And then they're like, oh, hey, guess what? How about you become the dishwasher? I was so thankful to be the dishwasher. I really wanted to be the dishwasher. And so I got the job of the dishwasher. And then from that point, everything tick, 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 exactly as that vision had. And then one day, and I think it was probably a bit more than a year, so it might have been like 14 months, but that's about a year, right? About 14 months after that initial vision, I found myself finally at the apprentice stage, having trained through all the jobs, and finally I'm an apprentice to this very talented monk chef named Yogananda, who also happened to look like Paramahansa Yogananda, but that's another thing. I'm there, I'm chopping some onions in front of the ticket window. I'm looking out the ticket window, and it was the same scene. And of course I was skeptical about that, but I have a very good picture memory. And it was the same, the same woman with straight black hair, wearing white, walking by. The same person behind the juice bar. Of course, the copper wall, which I hadn't put together at that time for some bizarre reason, and the ferns, and all of that. It all came back like with some kind of state-specific, quantum entangled, by 14 months memory, and there we were. And what a wonderful thrill that was, to be coming through like that. And anyway, I'm going to keep this video short. It's almost 10 minutes now. You probably want to go. There'll be more installments because a great many magical things happened in this. I don't know how many square feet this was, but this very small cafe and coffee house that we ran on the Oregon coast. A great many magical things. So I'll be sharing some of those, and I'll probably also be doing some simple instructions, simple but good instructions, and meditation practice. So until the next time, bye-bye.